Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Welcome back to Raised by Giants, another live episode discussion. Welcome everyone in the chat. Good to see you guys and any channel members and or moderators out there. Thanks for joining us here this morning for a special report with someone who knows a lot about these drones and may be able to shed some light on what they are and what may actually be going on. This will be my last show before Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Xmas, Merry X-Man Christmas, however, or whatever it is that you celebrate. I hope that you're happy, healthy, and your family is safe and everything goes super smooth this Christmas. And be sure to tell your friends and family about A Clockwork Shining on Amazon Prime. It is a Christmas movie, an unconventional Christmas movie, but it's still a Christmas movie. Follow the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The show is also a podcast, and you can download the episode there and listen whenever you like. Also, if you're in the Christmas spirit, and we are a viewer-supported show, if you'd like to help support the show, PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description. Also, you can send in super chats and super stickers if you would like a comment or a question highlighted during the show. Channel memberships are also available and are a fantastic way to help support the show, and you get bonus content for being a channel member. But with all that down, here to discuss with us the strange stuff that's happening in New Jersey. He actually investigates areas of high strangeness and owns property overlooking the infamous Skinwalker Ranch. He hosts the popular podcast Hero Paranormal and has written about his experiences investigating the Skinwalker. Ryan Burns, welcome back to the show, my friend. How's it going?
Going great. Happy to be talking with you, and Merry Christmas to you if we don't talk before then. And I highly recommend people watch A Clockwork Shining. It's definitely worth it. But yeah, let's get into this.
Yeah, it seems like this whole thing has been like evolving since its inception, right, in New Jersey. And thank you, Ryan. I really appreciate that. And Merry Christmas to you as well. But it seems like it's been evolving. It started out, I've talked about it a few times already with Trey Hudson and Ryan Gable before, but it seems like it's been changing and evolving since this first started. Supposedly it's been happening since November of this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding. And, while we're recognizing it right now as like a huge thing, everybody's got their eyes to the skies in New Jersey. This is something that, there's credible implications and credible reports coming, like you said, since November.
Yeah, it seems like that a Phoenix Lights type of situation that we kind of got going on, that people may not understand the implications of exactly what's going on right now because we're in the moment. We're experiencing it right now, and I think that it's possible that later on some other implications, some other event, just like I played the Ronald Reagan clip before we started the show, some other event is sort of lined up in the future, and this is something to get people used to the idea of these crafts just kind of being in the sky, regardless if they're actual drones, regardless if they are military craft, regardless if, because some people are now saying that they're plasma beings. Have you heard about this? People calling them plasma. I mean, this is a video that was taken from ABC, and this, I don't know what this is. Do you have any idea what this is?
Yeah, when you're in the when you're in the business of filming UFOs, this, in my opinion, is nothing spectacular. And the only reason I say that is you can do this with any celestial body and a regular filming device like an iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy. You just have to make sure and focus in to the right distance, and you'll get this effect. Now, without anything in the foreground or background showing movement, and without any video really showing what this thing is doing, it's kind of difficult, to really. It could be authentic, but yeah, you or I could make this. I could make this right now, like looking out my window, and
So it's
with
like
my
a
phone.
reflection of light or like a lens flare?
Yeah, so if you have, it could be anything. It could be and given the time that it was done, it could even be the moon. We have a full moon right now, so you could have it on like very low zoom. And again, I don't want to say that this is fake or anything, but I'm just saying that there's just not enough to go on with this footage. You could make this footage out, like I said, I could make it out my window right now, and it would look just like that. And that's not to say that everything everyone is seeing in New Jersey, there's definitely something going on, but we have seen a lot of footage. Exactly. Bradley just nailed it. The out of focus light source, because there's just no detail there.
You're telling me that ABC is putting out fake footage, Ryan? Oh my God.
I know,
Cannot
it's a
believe it.
shocker.
But this is a big problem with a lot of these videos and everyone kind of jumping on this bandwagon, because they're not only posting videos that may or may not be authentic videos, but they're also posting old videos, old orb videos from who knows where that may or may not even be real. And it's kind of like just throwing all this stuff into the mix, and it's created a lot of confusion. Now, there are other videos. This one here is actually really interesting that I found last night, which looks like a drone war is kind of going down, and there's things that are shooting out of this drone, and which whenever it pans over, it is really reminiscent of the TR-3B, this military craft that we know that the military has and has been developing for a long time. But this one looks like it's kind of disappearing and then like reappearing, and then did you see that flash of light right there? It looked like one of these things shot at one of them, and then it pans over, and then boom, right here. Does that not look like a TR-3B
Mm-hmm.
right there?
It does. I mean, yeah, there's a number of triangular craft, TR-3B being one of them, the Aurora. There's a number of them. And yeah, I mean, they're all really easily described as having those points of light, on their edges for good reason. But yeah, this footage is like, in my opinion, far better than the one you had before. But and there's more, as you've seen. It's just like a tapestry of all kinds of events.
Yeah. So what do we think is actually um, happening with these drones? Is it the last time I talked to you, you said that you were possibly actually going to New Jersey. Did you ever make it to New Jersey?
Yeah, I have a contact out there, and I was going to go out with him, and he ended up having to cancel. Not to say that it still won't happen, but there is a lot, a lot going on. And like I said, it is, in my opinion, no one thing in particular that I know of. There are at least 5 components right now, and there could be more. So the issue is that when you have a different players with an overall narrative, in other words, a multi-pronged strategy, uh, you can't say it's just this without taking into consideration some of the other players or characters or objects. And this footage of like the triangular craft versus the orb versus the obvious drones, there's a number of potential players, and so it's a puzzle.
Yeah, these ones are really interesting because it doesn't seem to be like the light source doesn't seem to be like blinking, other than those two drones that just, or whatever they were, went in between those. It doesn't seem like that they're, standard aircraft here, because normally a standard aircraft would have blinking and rotating lights like green, red, like a typical drone or a typical manned aircraft would have. Here I actually have a footage of one of these drones and what they actually look like and what they can look like, which is this right here. This is what a typical drone at night would be flashing, and that is what some of them look like.
Yeah, the typical drone thing is something that we can't ignore, because we're getting a lot of people in the conspiracy world that are posting these are not drones. And I understand that there's a percentage of these that may not be drones for sure. My hat's in that ring. However, there is a percentage of these that are very much drones, like you're saying. Like, we know what we're looking at, it's obvious. And there's a number of people that are basically fighting the drone, idea. But some of them are very obviously drones. And in some cases, these drones are actually being decommissioned or taken out of the sky by things that appear to be more exotic in nature or possibly anomalous. So it's a heck of a deal. This, in my opinion, will go down in the books as sort of a war of the worlds scenario later on, because it just continues. And a lot of folks are saying it's just distraction, don't take it seriously, but there's very much a serious aspect to this.
Yeah, I would have to agree in the way that it keeps and it keeps going on and it keeps happening. That's one of the strangest things that's going on, and nobody seems to know exactly what it is. I mean, the White House came out and commented on it and said that um, that they believe that it's manned aircraft. Trump comes on and says, "Oh, well, this is the military knows what this is, and for some reason they're not telling the American public." Did you hear his comments on that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think he's not entirely incorrect. He's not wrong. There is, whenever this happens, you have to kind of approach it much like an intelligence squadron would, or a group of intelligence officials. And whenever you have so-called aerial craft that are typically not seen, and in some cases unidentified, you have to investigate it. And the FBI has investigated it, and other agencies. And in their reconnaissance, they've found a lot of things, a lot of that stuff they can't report on. And they've had a lot of anomalous things happen after some of the investigations. But the important thing to remember is, if anybody just comes out and says, it's this 100%, end of story, I would say turn around, walk away. And, you can bookmark that, but there's more going on.
Now, what do we think about this this idea of these drones scanning for something, or these craft? Because, like you said, I don't know if they're all 100% drones. If people saying they're plasma, some say that they're manned aircraft, some are military drones, some are R&D, like people's regular drones that they apparently buy from Best Buy and fly up there. What do we think about the idea that they're looking for something, that they're scanning maybe the skies for something, or they're scanning the ground for something. It looks like you got a little orbit. Is a drone in your house right now, Ryan? What's going on up there above
Could
that
be. These are
bookshelf, dude?
wild times. I do have one just over my desk here, and another two in the corner. So, yeah, a lot of people. There's a lot of private citizens that have these. A lot of people have put out the allegation that, hey, this is all Elon Musk's brother, Kimball Musk, because he owns a company known as Nova Sky Stories with over 9,000 drones in his capacity. And, I love the conspiracy aspect of all this. It's a lot of fun. But getting back to what you said, I think there is a political element to this. We have conflicts in the world happening right now. Of course, the conflict in the Middle East. We have conflicts with Ukraine. And, it's been my understanding, and a lot of other folks have keyed into this, that there is a very real aspect. In other words, at least 9 nations, but most likely more, that are not happy with us. And we have, we do have enemies. Believe it or not, we have enemies. And if it was not for this conflict in Ukraine, the way it was explained to me, RFK's done a good job of explaining this online. And Mitch McConnell has actually kind of tipped his hat and let the cat out of the bag. But basically, if it was not for the conflict in Ukraine, I've been told that our country would be completely bankrupt right now. We would be in an extreme recession, and everybody would be starting to go hungry, if not starving already. And the conflict in Ukraine has basically filled our coffers, or filled the pockets of the big five, which is Northrop Grumman, Boeing, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics. And those are owned in majority by BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. So, not to get too convoluted, but these guys have made a ton of money. Not only a ton of money, they've gotten rid of all their old surplus, and they've kept us from going bankrupt, allegedly, which is a great thing if you live here. Not a good thing if you live in Ukraine. So, there is, the very real aspect that there are winners and losers in these conflicts. And not only have the big five and BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard and all of these other multinational corporations, many of which are agricultural and have their eyes on the prize, which is the agricultural land in Ukraine, which is kind of the breadbasket of Europe, really, really rich soil. The DuPonts have purchased land there, the company formerly known as Monsanto, and other multinationals, because Ukraine can never fully repay us for what we've done. You can't. It's kind of unfair. But anyway, the bottom line is we are winning not only agricultural lands in the form of those purchases, we're winning getting rid of our old surplus. And what Mitch McConnell said, which really tipped a lot of people off, is he was asked, why do we continue giving these billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine? And he explained, we're not. We're getting this money back with interest. And everybody realized at that point, like, whoa, we may have some kind of a grift here, right? Like a money laundering scheme. And that is one reason that, our economy is doing pretty good. This Christmas is looking pretty amazing. But at the same time, we have to be aware that there could be the potential for an attack. And as you asked, if we have these highly exotic technologies capable of detection, in other words, detection units that are highly specialized assets designed for reconnaissance and threat identification, that's accurate. I think these leaks are accurate.
Yeah, unfortunately, war equals money for the military industrial complex and the banks, of course. And I personally believe that the reason that we give so much foreign aid is because it's like hush money, right? We're like, here, take all this money, take all of our money for whatever you need to use it for. And then when it's time to, it's not even so much like pay us back. It's like a favor, right? For something that's going to happen in the future that we're going to need your support on. You remember whenever I gave you all? You remember when I gave you $5 billion about 5 or 6 years ago for to support your country and support this war against Russia? Well, now it's your turn. It's your turn to return the favor, right? And that's kind of, you can see that on like a small scale with people. They do things for each other and they expect something in return, and maybe not something. It's kind of like an IOU is what I look at it as. And essentially we've just been paying off all these countries for a really long time, and then either backstabbing them or making them do something that they necessarily don't want to do. And I think countries are going to start to, if they haven't already, they're going to start seeing through that really quickly.
Yeah, as you know, there is a really good book out there called Confessions of an Economic Hitman that detail what you're talking about really well, where these associates and assistants to the central banks with connections in all kinds of engineering, municipal work, you name it, whatever the case might be, they roll into countries and they say, and these are countries that don't have conflicts. They can go in and rape them. And so just imagine a country that has any kind of a perceived conflict, which in many cases are conflicts that, for lack of a better word, are put into motion in a problem reaction solution dynamic. And then the coast is clear because it's just easy pickings. It's like taking candy from a baby. And there we do have enemies right now. The BRICS nations are something that have kind of branched off, and at least in so much as public opinion have a different plan. Now, that's not to say, and I'm one who believes that Russia has also made a lot of money. Their economy is doing really well. Russia and the United States have done really well with this conflict. It's always the little guy that doesn't do so hot. But I think what you said is accurate, man. I think what you said is accurate.
So what's the possibility and what's the chance that some of this stuff that's happening in New Jersey currently right now are foreign? That, I mean, foreign as in another country's technology? Because again, that was one of the first things that a Republican senator says, that this was Iran, that an Iranian mothership was parked off of the East Coast and that was sending in all these drones. But then Trump says that he doesn't believe that it's a foreign threat, because if it was a foreign threat, as in another country's technology, then we would shoot it down. We would just shoot it right out of the sky. And that kind of makes sense. But then also, when you take into consideration the Chinese spy balloon that was floating around the United States for weeks on end last year, around this time last year, that we didn't shoot that down for a while. We waited until it was over the ocean to shoot it down. And apparently we knew that that was the Chinese. So if we knew that it was the Chinese and it was a freaking spy balloon, why didn't we shoot it down immediately? So I don't know if that comment actually holds any water, even if we did believe that these were foreign drones or foreign craft or whatever. There's, based off of the past, it doesn't mean that we would immediately shoot them down.
Yeah, there he I think the guy went out, the congressman, I'm sorry, the senator, I believe it was. I think he went out on a limb a little too far. And, he's not wrong in that, and neither was Trump. But I think you brought up something really big when you said, these foreign threats, and we'll get to that. But I think that, yeah, there has been initial accurate leaks of a covert segment of the US intelligence that has flagged credible indications of an impending large scale attack. And this is not what everybody thinks it might be, but it could be what people are brainstorming about. In other words, it's a threat that could be, at least as it was described to me, dynamic, highly fluid, and elusive. And the way it was described to me is it would be like hunting a mouse in a pitch black football stadium. So you can imagine how hard that would be and why you would need something like drones or something with the technology to cover and do reconnaissance in an area, scan a vicinity. And, these operations would be to sniff is what they call it, even though it's not exactly sniffing. But basically, it would be something to avoid widespread panic, find any potential threats. And we've noticed that these drones are being seen in other states as well. In fact, just day before yesterday, Las Vegas news outlet came out openly saying that they will be flying aircraft over the Las Vegas Strip to sniff, scan, and look for any potential radiation threats. So the reality is everybody knows that there is, for lack of a better word, the potential for a nuclear threat, suitcase nuke, dirty bomb, whatever you want to call it, maybe even something biological or chemical. And it doesn't help that the gentleman in charge of Russia's nuclear, chemical, and biological warfare was just assassinated. He was just blown up coming out of a building with his assistant. And, the news reported it, but people really haven't commented on it. This is a huge deal. This is like, that would be like if a country did that here, that would be for sure an act of terrorism, took out one of our top generals and the top guy when it came to nuclear strategy. So, yeah, there's definitely blood in the water.
I think where they mess up is that they say that they don't know what they are, right? Because then that leads to so much speculation and hyperbole and conjecture. All that they really got to say is if they actually have the situation under control and it is our craft, or if it's mixed with some other maybe foreign craft or mixed with some, civilian drones. All they got to say is that it's a military exercise. That's it. That's all they got to do. Just like they do with every other event that happens, there always seems to be some sort of military exercise going on during the time of that event. I mean, you got 9/11, you got the Boston Marathon bombing, the most recent shooting. There was a freaking testing that was going on to try and prevent that exact same thing. It's so crazy. So really, all they got to do is be like, "Oh, don't worry, guys. This is just a military exercise," and then people would just be like, "Okay, well, it's just military. That's it," and then that would solve all the concerns, regardless of actually what it might be. It might be something completely different. We don't really know. But they could just tell the public to calm everybody down, to keep this from becoming something that it's not, by just saying this is a military exercise. You would solve it all by doing that. And there is some proof that this may actually be a military exercise. I mean, the United States, the UK, and Australia, they're testing AI-powered drone swarms in, in military exercises where they're just like to simulate battlefield scenarios. And they've been doing this since August of this year. It's called Project Convergence. So, and also China has drones that are almost doing that exact same thing. They're throwing out aerial cluster drones to simulate swarm attacks. So all they got to do is say, "Hey, this is just a military exercise," and then that'll calm everybody down. But they don't. And I'm So it's so strange that they don't say that. Like, because it could just completely, take away anybody's fears. But so the only reason that I would think that they would want to do that is because they want the speculation, they want the theories, they want people, going online and talking about it, and nobody knowing exactly what's going on because they could literally solve it. And I think that that might be what Trump is really saying when he says that they know what they are and they're not telling anybody, and for some reason they're not telling anyone. So that would make the most sense in my eyes. Just come out, say it's a military training exercise, and it's done and it's over. But the only reason that they wouldn't do that is if they're trying to build those theories and build that speculation and build that, the theorizing of what these are to, give people a sense, get people used to just seeing things in the sky for an event that may or may not happen 5 to 10 years in the future.
I think a lot of valid points. Lots of valid points. It's, in my opinion, as you said, this is something that if it continues, I believe we will, or it's very likely that we will see military engagement in the realm of exercises deployed, or they will admit that these are taking place. At the moment, they may just be protecting some of the independent contractors, allegedly Reliable Robotics. There's a list a mile long of these contractors, but the reality is, of course, the drones, as you've mentioned. The reality is that whenever these things surface, whenever there's reports of anomalous craft, I believe that the government, the United States government, has deliberately remained silent to avoid any widespread panic, first of all, but more importantly, it's something that they tolerate these wild claims, these alien invasion claims. In fact, the alien invasion narrative is great because it is something that distracts from what's actually taking place, and it's far less destabilizing to the majority of the population than the reality. So yeah, man, they're going to keep quiet until they can't, and when they no longer can keep quiet, then I believe we will see, and probably in the near future, some military engagement exercise scenario.
I mean, I think we already have. I mean, this seems like a military craft. What this is right here, and there's schematics, there's details about what this kind of craft is, and online that you can just type in, type into Google TR3B, and here's one of them right here, which is a schematic of what the TR3B looks like. And it seems that they're already doing that, that they're already in the sky. Then it's like, oh well, are these craft manned craft, or are they 100% autonomous drones? Are they hooked up with some kind of AI system? Because that's what a lot of people have talked about with these drones, when people or craft or whatever they are, whenever something gets close to them, they completely shut down. And that would be reminiscent of some sort of AI technology, that they would go dark whenever something is approaching them. All the lights would go off so that they can get away. But then that brings up, are they surveilling for something? Like, why would you have all these drones clustered in the sky? Just because there's some videos, Ryan, that I've seen where it looks like there's hundreds of them. Now, again, I don't know if all these videos are 100% real, or if they're fake, or they're older videos, but it seems like there's a lot of them in the sky. So what would be the purpose of doing that? I mean, would you be scanning for something in the sky? Would you be scanning for something in the ground? Or is this just some kind of exercise? Because it kind of seems counterintuitive to have so many of them out there at the exact same time, unless this is, a testing like I was talking about, or a military exercise. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's multi-pronged. You can kill it, at this point. I think we're killing two or three birds with one stone. We have we want to test things. The U.S. Navy has been allegedly testing growing what is known as plasma technology bases. These are in different forms, mid-air decoys. They have all kinds of different capabilities, but they are very much plasma craft. And we have, at the same time, we have Christmas and New Year's coming up. I told you that at least in Las Vegas, they're acknowledging the fact that there will be aircraft checking for radiation signatures along the strip. And of course, we have just over the river from New Jersey, we have New York and Manhattan, Times Square, which is a big deal on New Year's. These are great places that if you were a terrorist and you had the technology to cause a bunch of havoc, this is a place that you would probably pinpoint. And then I think there's also an interest in this technology that goes way deeper than many people believe. That, as you said, this technology may be utilized in future capacities. And I've been told that allegedly there are Nest units, which is known as this is an agency that a lot of conspiracy theorists allege is kind of the new MIB, craft recovery teams, etc. And they come out of the energy department. It's a NEST stands for a nuclear emergency support team, which comes from a variety of different agencies all grouped together. And that's the best way to function, allegedly, is if you have an advanced working group that is gathering its top minds from different agencies. All of those specific agencies can claim they don't know what's going on because they don't, but their top minds are involved together in a secretive team that is on site. And if the nuclear emergency support teams are in the vicinity, I think a very good reason would be what we've seen, like you pointed out the TR-3B and some of the schematics there, the allegations that these may be nuclear powered. Well, if one of these things comes down, it could turn into a problem. I've been told they're super insulated. They're very safe. Yet you could always have, a mishap, a hairline crack. It's like driving a Tesla. Things can happen, even though you're riding on a huge lithium-ion battery that's safe 99.9% of the time. We see that things can happen. So if this is the case, it would make sense why there have been so many public, in effect, notices sent out to law enforcement, to fire departments on the East Coast, that if they see one of these things go down, to not approach it, to basically keep the public away from it, and to call in the big guns. And so, yeah, I think that we have, in conclusion, a whole bunch of things taking place, and that's not to take away from the anomalous aspect, because some of the one FBI profiler in particular that I spoke with mentioned that some of the FBI agents that were investigating the quote unquote drones, and I know people go crazy, don't call them drones, but one person, he said that some of these agents would go home afterwards, and that some of the more anomalous craft would actually hover over their residences. So there's either super exotic tracking technology or something more anomalous also involved. And a lot of the, ufologists would call this a number of things, including the watchers, or, it's similar to the hitchhike effect or the hitchhiker effect that you run into in the Uinta Basin of Utah, like in and around Space Wolf Research. We'll have people visit, they'll see something strange or encounter something that is anomalous, and then they'll go home, in some cases thousands of miles away, and have some of that high strangeness follow them home. So I don't want to discount the possibility of something non-human involved, but it may just be along the lines of anomalous or, just general high strangeness.
Do we have any confirmed reports of any of these drones or craft actually being shot down? Because there's been a lot of, or falling from the sky or crashing, because there's been a lot of people talk about that some of them have fell out of the sky, but the videos are really suspicious. They look like, we don't really know if they're real, and they kind of look like actual planes that may have crashed, because I think that there was a plane crash that happened not too long ago on like a highway, and that might be being passed off as being a drone. From your understanding, Ryan, are there any confirmed reports of any of these craft that are over New Jersey falling to the ground or being shot down?
I have seen some pretty legitimate reports that this has taken place, and people have reported that animals are acting very strange when these things are in the sky, some of them. And even though many of them appear to almost be along the lines of orbs or ball lightning, some kind of electrical plasma, the fact that animals and people are both kind of feeling, the hairs on their necks go up. Again, I don't want to detract from the anomalous aspect, but I think that there are very much physical drones that have been taken out of the sky. Yes. And I think there's proof of that. I've seen law enforcement officials who have talked about that. And this is sort of one of the reasons I think that these notices are going out from higher levels of government, asking, firemen, law enforcement officials, that if they see something come down out of the sky, to not interact with it. There could be a variety of reasons.
Do we think that some of these are, because that's been a contention and a question too, is like, well, if these are just drones, these are just military drones, and how do they hover for so long? How are they, staying in the same space for such long periods of time? I mean, people have reported that they're over, like you mentioned, over their house for like 5-6 hours at a time, just like hovering there. And then some people say, well, we don't have that kind of technology because we couldn't actually, because there's also reports of them coming in and out of the water, like the UAP congressional hearing talked about just a couple of weeks ago. The entire congressional hearing was basically about, these USOs. And they were like, well, we don't have the technology to be able to, I mean, they do definitely have the technology for transmedium craft. They do have drones that are launched from submarines. It's 100% a real thing. They launch them from submarines and they come up out of the water. Then they go to their destination. But some people have been in contention about, if it is our technology and it's being launched from a submarine and then it's going up into the sky and then it's going to New Jersey and then it's hovering for 5 to 6 hours, would it have enough, power source to get back to the submarine or to, get away? And I'm not one, I really don't know. I don't know how, because it's reported that the TR-3B is, based on, what did this say, nuclear power, or I don't know if it was nuclear power. Nuclear power. Top secret craft, nuclear power flying triangle, the TR-3B. So, and then that would also be the reason why some of these, agencies have been called in because if one of these nuclear power craft go down, then that would then be a hazard to the public. Would that not be correct in that statement?
It could be. It could be. And while nuclear powered exotic propulsion is extremely efficient, and I've heard very, very safe, these alleged exotic propulsion systems, there are characteristics that can still affect, close proximity with humans. We're just not meant to be in close proximity of this stuff in a normal way. So yeah, I think that I've heard the most exotic lithium ion drone technology I've come across has a 18-hour capability. But like you said, some of these are being reported hovering for 6 hours in one particular spot. And then, they're coming from far away. They're taking off, going far away. We don't know. We don't know how long they've been in the air. And this wouldn't be any type of issue whatsoever if you have this alleged nuclear propulsion system on board, which is basically, I don't want to oversimplify it, but Bob Lazar was talking about this in the 80s. And, you basically just have a little onboard reactor. It's not that, it is that high tech, but it's not that high tech. Just, so, and as you mentioned and previously talked about, the US Navy is the one that's doing a lot of the alleged plasma technology, both anti-aircraft and shooting it out of the ocean. So there is that aspect. And I mean, we've been doing that I know of since 1966. So, and that stuff you can find in declassified documents. So, I mean, all of these things hold some water. And I would say that there's a variety of reasons why you wouldn't want to approach something that comes down out of the sky. It could be your basic tactical drone with a nuke on it. It could be just duct tape to it or whatever, and then it could also be something a lot more exotic in nature that they don't want us seeing. I mean, there's a reason why some of these things, and this may be why some of the fact that there could be exercises has not been admitted to yet, is because we do have technologies that we very much don't want the average citizen to see, with good reason. I mean, these technologies are, protecting us. And, the last thing you want, it's like going back to the medieval period and you're the only guy with a catapult. The last thing you want is for your neighbor to figure out that you have a catapult and like reverse engineer his own catapult. So, not to oversimplify, but yeah, we've seen a lot of cases of where technologies are actually detonated rather than even moving them in some of these quick reaction scenarios where the public has seen something go down. They rather lose that particular unit and just destroy it. Like the case of the helicopter allegedly that went and got Osama bin Laden, that had these felt tip blades among other exotic systems on board. They just blew it up because it's possible that a goat herder there may have seen something. So it's, you never know. Is it likely that these individuals could reverse engineer these technologies? No, it's not likely. But there's a protocol, and you don't want everybody and their dog sniffing around.
Then why would you put lights on it, Ryan? Why do you want blinking freaking lights on it if you don't want people to see it? Like, if you're not trying to make a statement and it's not a military exercise and you don't want people to see it, why are you strutting it out in front of everyone in the sky? That sounds counterintuitive and counterproductive. And I find it pretty odd, Ryan, that you don't want your neighbor to have a catapult. Would we not all be safer if everyone had a catapult in their home?
I would love one. I think if we see these so from the outside perspective, if we have that many craft in the sky and some of them are ours, there is something built into some of the more exotic systems that is AI based, and it's known as situational awareness, where these things can for all intents and purposes, almost act as if they're alive. And as you said, if something approaches them, they can turn off these lights so that they can't be seen. But if we have that many drones in the sky, there is the very real fear that we'll have planes running into them or crashing, like the one you talked about, unless they have these marker lights on them. So I think this is this is definitely, somebody is juggling a lot of things right now. I'm glad it's not me, because it's definitely hit the fan. The public has noticed. People have been staying up at night, even though it's cold, filming what they can. And I think that if this continues, we will see something along the lines of a military exercise command, at least statement come out to the public.
Lynn Earthling says people are reporting about getting sick or ill after watching them. Do you know anything about this? I haven't heard anything. Have you heard? Ryan knows a lot about getting sick and ill after seeing something really strange. He had an experience with a cattle mutilation that got him pretty sick. Have you heard any reports of this?
Lynn has a very good question. And again, getting back to why these blanket statements going out to law enforcement and fire departments keep people away, don't approach these things. There's something that back in the day, people used to call UFO disease. But what has been found out due to a bunch of files that have leaked off the desk of CIA Dr. Kit Green is that there is something that they are now terming, it's the same thing, but they're now terming it interference syndrome. And what it is very similar to Havana syndrome, that nauseousness. You end up with problems with your head, neurological disorders like you were discussing, and basically nerve endings, etc. What they're finding is with hundreds of patients, not all of which are government employees, but if you look up interference syndrome, it takes a while to get to the goods. And the goods are that top scientists, rocket scientists, propulsion experts, etc., that are in close proximity to what are being termed exotic propulsion systems end up with the same thing, interference syndrome, as people who are in areas of high strangeness, like Space Wolf research, people that are close to abduction events. Again, this is, when you look at the brain scan, their brains are literally like Swiss cheese with portions that have been killed, for lack of a better word, or are dead matter. Where it gets really interesting with interference syndrome is many of these professionals, specifically the rocket scientists, the propulsion experts, etc., are able to kind of download information quicker. They come up with more ideas. In some cases, their IQs go up. But as soon as they're no longer in those positions, oftentimes they'll retire, for example, and they will spiral very quickly. Their minds will spiral very quickly to, being near useless. And so this is an actual official study. Gary Nolan has been involved with this as well. An actual official study that the government has had to do to get NCD-10 codes for the insurance companies for all the families that have come forward and said, hey, dad was working on some top secret craft or some exotic propulsion, or maybe he was just stationed at a place of high strangeness. And now he's completely, physically not well. And we need to know how to get our insurance check, because up until that point, they'd just say, hey, sounds like bad luck, but it's not. There's something to it. So that's a great question, Lynn.
That seems to be the report from going way back into World War II with the Bell technology as well, and the Bell giving off a bunch of radiation and just making people sick that is anywhere near it or around it. But that makes you question, well, if these kind of craft are making people that ill and that sick and causing neurological disorders, and how is anybody inside of the craft? There can't be anybody inside of the craft. They have to be uh, drones, right? You can't put a human being inside of something that is putting off that much radiation or whatever it is that's causing this illness.
That's above my pay grade. I don't know.
Unless they have like some kind of invisible force field or within the craft, but I don't know. But that reminds me of this incident and George Knapp's new Netflix documentary that came out before the UFO congressional hearing. I don't know if you watched that or not, but I can't remember exactly where he went. It might have been in the Congo or somewhere far overseas. But there were these reports where this, like a couple of cars pulled over and they saw this craft in the sky. Then the craft came out and like shot laser beams at them. Are you familiar with that
Yeah.
story?
Yeah.
And one of the
Yeah.
laser
There's,
beams hit a lady in the chest, and she
Mhm.
supposedly still has a scar from the laser beam.
Yep. No, this is something that very much to the UFO skeptics, and many have alleged that this may have been, military testing back then. There's no reason why that couldn't fall under the umbrella. Go somewhere else, far away, test out what we got, and see how it works. But there's always the possibility that this may be of a very anomalous, or in other words, non-human intelligence involved. Like you said, if it's not a human pilot in there, and if we can't seem to figure this out, and I don't want to go too far down the woo-woo rabbit trail, rabbit hole here, but there have been a lot of individuals who have alleged that there are what they call biologics. They won't call them biological, but they will call them biologics, which mean that they are seemingly alive, they are apparently alive, they're logically in a capacity acting as a pilot, but they may not be entirely like us. And it opens a huge Pandora's box.
Well, that doesn't even really make any sense either, because that doesn't mean that when you say biologic, I'm assuming you're getting that from Dave Grush with the UFO congressional hearing last year. But what is he actually referring to? Because there's some people that believe that the craft themselves are alive. And that's what Kenneth Arnold believed, and one of the first people to see something supposedly anomalous back in 1947. He later changed his ideas and his thoughts surrounding what the craft are, and he thought that it was like a living being, something that can morph and change due to the perception of the viewer, sort of like the Carl Jung, the Jungian hypothesis that it's our perception. And that makes a lot of sense when you consider the way that the phenomenon has changed over the years, and how it was apparently in the beginning some sort of saucer, though Kenneth Arnold never said that it was saucer in shape. He said that it flew like a saucer. But that didn't stop people from still claiming that they saw saucer-like craft, and then it turned into the something completely different, and now it's drones, and like now it's plasma entity and beings. It's just so strange. But Ryan, we actually have another thing that we got to be worried about, other than these drones in New Jersey and some sort of drone invasion or an alien invasion. We also have to worry about a freaking asteroid, bro. DailyMail.com, huge Christmas Eve, asteroid the size of a 10-story building will skim past Earth at 4,743 miles per hour on December 24th, NASA warns. This Christmas Eve, children around the world may be hoping to catch a glimpse of Santa's sleigh flying through the skies. But NASA has warned that jolly old St. Nick won't be the only thing whizzing over our heads on December 24th. A massive Christmas Eve asteroid the size of a 10-story building will skim past Earth at 14,743 miles per hour, bro. Did you know about this asteroid, dude?
They're always trying to take Santa's fire. I think they're trying to deflect. No, there is. Yeah, a lot of these things happen, and it's always extremely dynamic, and it's horrifying, and everybody's put on high alert. But at the end of the day, it really does just look like Santa's sleigh going by.
Nah, bro, this is an asteroid. We got to be concerned about the asteroid now, dude. Always. It's always an asteroid every year, dude. Some kind of asteroid, some kind of, what was it last year? It was a different kind of, it was a comet that some news
a
reporter.
Huge one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a comet last year that was coming close to Earth. I forget what it was called, but a big time news reporter from ABC was calling it a mothership. I distinctly remember this happening last year.
Yeah, it fits so well with like the pre-predictive programming of all the, like movies like Don't Look Up, where it's like, yeah, eventually we're just going to get blown to smithereens, so ignore it. I don't know. There seems to be a lot of stuff flying around. That's for sure.
Nah, bro, we need to be worried about this asteroid, dude. We need to be worried about UFO, drones, transmedium craft, alien species, bomb nukes, and freaking asteroids, bro.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yep. That's
Well,
right.
Ryan, thanks so much for coming on, brother. Really appreciate you. Can you let people know where they can find you?
Absolutely. You can find the podcast. It's a smaller podcast. It's at heroparanormal.com. Hero Paranormal on YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, anywhere you hear them.
Yeah, baby. Links to Ryan's website is in the description of this video. And thank you guys so much, everyone in the chat, for being here. Really appreciate you guys. And Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Hope you guys enjoy your time, and hope everything is great with your family. And be warned. Watch out for these UFOs. Watch out for these orbs. Watch out for these plasma craft. Watch out for asteroids. Watch out for suitcase nukes. It's all going to come after us. They're here to get us. So beware this Christmas, and definitely beware of this asteroid. And get out your binoculars and your military grade night vision goggles. Maybe you'll see a UFO. Maybe you'll see an asteroid. Maybe you'll see Santa's sleigh. Who knows, bro? But thank you guys so much for being here. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up button to help the channel on the algorithm. Share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notifications. And also be sure to check out my documentary, A Clockwork Shining, on Amazon Prime and Apple TV Plus for the holidays. If you're, December isn't hitting like October, and you want to get your spooky season on, watch the documentary on Amazon Prime and Apple TV Plus. All right, guys. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.